You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Get your sights up, aim high, let him see your fire.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I am your host, Sean Bingham, and a fine Friday we have. Today, we've got some bad news. Bad news you probably heard about yesterday, and that is that the Houston Texans superstar quarterback Deshaun Watson tore his ACL at practice, out for the season. Gosh, what a blow. Non-contact injury, and that just sucks for Houston. I mean, this city, first of all, they lose J.J. Watt for the season, again, which is just horrible. He's, at that point, for sure, he was their most important player, their best player. Well, that most important best player became Deshaun Watson. Now they lose him. They already went through Hurricane Harvey, which is obviously way more significant than any sort of sports thing. They did just win the World Series, but of course the day after they win the World Series, in the midst of their celebration, they lose their star quarterback for the season. Not good. ACL tears are never a good thing. So we feel for Deshaun Watson. We feel for Houston. Glad that they got the Astros in the World Series victory to have something to be excited about. It's always cool when that happens for cities. You think about when Katrina hit New Orleans and the Saints won the Super Bowl that year. That was really a cool thing. Sports can really bring cities together, bring people together. It's just one of the many reasons I love sports. But we do feel for Houston fans, Texan fans. Without their two best players, I mean, I would like to think that with J.J. Watt and Deshaun Watson, both healthy, both on the field for an entire season, I'd like to think Houston's actually a contender because Deshaun Watson is only getting better. He's having one of the best rookie seasons we've seen in a long, long time. As most of you know by now, I'm a big Washington Redskins fan. And RG3's rookie season, people, when they think RG3 now, they just think like disaster, mess, not in the league. That's all true. But let's not forget his rookie season was one of the best rookie seasons in the history of the NFL. He changed the game. He couldn't keep up with it. He was rushing too much. He wasn't very good at sliding. And he ended up getting hurt and several different times, and he just kind of fell apart. But I pulled up, so Deshaun Watson's stats through so far this year are as follows. He has a 61.8 completion percentage. He's thrown for 1,699 yards, 19 touchdowns, which is most in the NFL, 8 interceptions. Not good, but not horrible, especially for a rookie. He's 3-3 as a starter. He has a 103 passer rating, which is 5th in the league. So his passer rating is number 5 in the entire league. He has 269 yards rushing and 2 more touchdowns on the ground. Far and away Rookie of the Year. We're going to talk about who now should be Rookie of the Year. But before I do that, I want to compare him to other Rookies of the Year. RG3 being one. So let's talk about who the last 10 were. It's a big deal to be Rookie of the Year, and Deshaun Watson was well on his way. So last year, easy, Dak Prescott. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott was right there with him, also on the Cowboys. Todd Gurley, the year before that. Odell Beckham Jr., 2014, recognizing these names. Dak Prescott, Todd Gurley, Odell Beckham Jr. It's a big deal to be Rookie of the Year. Year before that, Eddie Lacy. Hasn't been as good the last couple of years, but had a good run there for 2 or 3 seasons. RG3 was the year before that. Talked about him. We'll talk about him more. Cam Newton in 2011. Still a starter. Won an MVP. Went to a Super Bowl. Sam Bradford, 2010. Percy Harvin, 2009. Matt Ryan, 2008. Was just in the Super Bowl. Considered an elite quarterback by most people. And Adrian Peterson, 2007. That's the last 10 years. We'll stop there. But look at those names. Adrian Peterson, Matt Ryan, Percy Harvin, Sam Bradford, Cam Newton, Robert Griffin III, Eddie Lacy, Odell Beckham Jr., Todd Gurley, Dak Prescott. It's a big deal to be Rookie of the Year. That's a very, very big deal. And so I wanted to see, just how good was Deshaun Watson? Because RG3's Rookie of the Year, one of the best seasons we've seen in a long, long time. RG3, that is. And RG3, I've got it pulled up here. His quarterback rating, his passer rating was a 139.9. But then it tapered off, and the Redskins actually started, and I know this by heart, they were 3-7 that year, and they reeled off 6 straight wins to win the division. And RG3 was on fire those last 6 games. I mean, he's a rookie. It takes you a while to get into a groove. Everybody could see how talented he was through the course of the first 10 games. And he showed flashes. He had good stats. But he had several games where, he didn't throw very many touchdowns. In fact, the most touchdowns he threw their first 10 games in any one game was 2. He threw 0 on 3 occasions. And then their last 6 games, 4 touchdowns, 1, 2. So he threw 12 touchdowns in a 5-game stretch, and then the last game he didn't play a whole lot. But the point of all this is that Deshaun Watson is having a better first half to his season than Robert Griffin III had. And Robert Griffin III had the most stellar second half of the season easily of the last 10 years for a rookie quarterback. Not even close. I mean, the guy was on fire. He also rushed for a lot of yards, but Deshaun Watson has just had a phenomenal season, and it's too bad. I hope he comes back stronger than ever. I think he will. The guy's a winner. I really, really like him. I think he's going to be in the league for a long, long time. And he plays a better game than RG3. He doesn't run as much. He doesn't look as clunky. He doesn't look as lucky. I don't like admitting that as a Redskins fan, but there was a lot of plays where it felt like RG3 kind of got lucky, to be totally honest with you. Just he'd heave it up there and it would pay off, and so. But so the question now is, who is Rookie of the Year, right? I mean, if it's not going to be Deshaun Watson, who's it going to be? And I think there's 2 guys for Offensive Rookie of the Year that it could be. One is, of course, Kareem Hunt, leading the league in rushing on the 6-2 Kansas City Chiefs. Had just a stellar first 3 games of the season. In fact, through the first 3 weeks, he was Rookie of the Year for sure. And then he tapered off a little bit, and Deshaun Watson just shot up. And so Deshaun Watson overtook him. But the other guy would be Leonard Fournette. So again, you've really got 2 guys. You've got Kareem Hunt, you've got Leonard Fournette. And to me, I would give the edge, honestly, to Kareem Hunt, but barely. Like, Leonard Fournette is surging. Kareem Hunt is not declining, but he's just not having the same phenomenal stats that he had the first few weeks of the season. He hasn't missed a game. Fournette did. His team has a better record, but Fournette's kind of turning a team around. The Jags are 4-3, and so Fournette's only played 6 games. Kareem Hunt's played 8. Kareem Hunt is leading the league in rushing, and he also catches the ball out of the backfield quite a bit. Leonard Fournette on the season, if I can pull it up here, there we go. Leonard Fournette has 136 yards receiving and 1 touchdown, and he has 596 yards rushing for 6 touchdowns. So he has 7 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt has 4 touchdowns rushing, 2 touchdowns receiving, so 6 total, but he's played 2 extra games, and he's averaging slightly fewer yards per game, even though he's leading the league in rushing against because he's played 8 games. But receiving, Kareem Hunt has 307 yards, which is 38.4 yards per game. So he's averaging over 100 yards from scrimmage per game, and he's averaging more yards from scrimmage per game than Fournette is, and he did it for each of the first 6 games of the season. Then he had 1 slip-up, I think, so which no rookie had ever done. So I would give the slight edge to Kareem Hunt, again, largely in part due to the fact that his team has a better record, and he has been a really, really big part of that. I mean, we mentioned yesterday how I think Alex Smith should be the MVP, and I think that Kareem Hunt should be Rookie of the Year. Coach of the Year we'll get into later, but I already am going to tell you now. Actually, we probably won't get into it later because I already tell you now. It's not Andy Reid, even though we have a Chiefs theme going here. It's Sean McVay, what he's doing with the Rams, turning them around. But yeah, so I mean, Rookie of the Year is Kareem Hunt. He's actually leading the league in all-purpose yards with 1,070. 3rd in the league in yards per game rushing. He's just really, really, really good, and he's somebody that, in fact, in my fantasy league, I picked him up in the 5th round, so kudos to me for that one. Of course, the rest of my fantasy league has been decimated by injuries. If you do fantasy, I mean, so I had Deshaun Watson on my roster. I had OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., on my roster. I had Dalvin Cook on my roster. Those are 3 guys that were in like the top 3 to 5 of their position league-wide. Dalvin Cook, probably closer to 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there when he went out. And all 3 of them lost for the season. Kind of sucky, but such is life. But the last thing I want to talk about today, because I have kind of been rambling, my apologies, is Ezekiel Elliott Suspended for 6 games, gets reinstated. Suspended for 6 games, gets reinstated. He just got reinstated again. He's going to play this week. So for a third time, we thought he was going to be suspended, and he is not. And it's just kind of becoming a little bit of a, it's just a mess. I'll put it that way because I don't want to say other words. But it's a disaster. I mean, the NFL looks so stupid right now. And it's basically like, let's just see how many judges we can find that are Cowboy fans, and we'll keep getting this thing reversed, keep getting it reinstated. There has been some, conflict of interest. They do have some good points. But, man, it's just crazy. You look at what, Tom Brady went through, and he eventually just said, you know what, fine, I'm just going to serve the suspension. Like, he won one season. They did it to him again the next. He's like, I'm just not even going to fight it. Let's just get this 4-game suspension over with. And the Patriots were fine. They won the Super Bowl. So it'll be interesting to see how long this goes on with Ezekiel Elliott, but the NFL needs to get it together and figure it out. Anyway, that's all for today. I'm out. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out stbsportstake.com. Simply the best in sports.